Today's reading is from Psalm 19. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Yet their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In the heavens he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and nothing is hid from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is clear, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The ordinances of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, even much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned, in keeping them there a great reward. But who can detect one's own errors? Clear me from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from the insolent. Do not let them have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer.
We are continuing the 15 texts from the Bible, and I think this is number 4, 3 or 4, something like that. They are just texts that I'm pulling out to have us just kind of focus on a text at a time. And this is one that it really means quite a bit to me. It's Psalm 19. You might have heard this in church, but many pastors actually, before they preach, will say this or pray this. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. I do something very similar to that. About every Sunday when I come here in the morning when I have the time to myself, I kneel in front of the thing here, altar. Thank you very much. I was counting bald people. I got caught, but I pray for God to help speak through me. I pray that I just don't screw up, that kind of thing. And so that's one that's there. But this poem, it really is a poem. It's attributed to King David. It has, whenever I read it, I'm reminded of my own faith. C.S. Lewis, you're familiar with C.S. Lewis, the author. He actually called this the greatest poem that there ever was. This was his favorite of all time. And who am I to argue with C.S. Lewis? But did I ever tell you how I met Allison? How Allison and I met? Allison's my wife. She's around the corner. She's running the camera today. There she is. Allison was working for a place, I shouldn't call, the name is back to the Bible, but I'm going to use a different name, Return to Scripture. But she worked there, and they had a lot of production and radio and things like that, literature and all that kind of stuff. But they were pretty, when it came to Christianity and stuff, they were pretty strict and stringent and all of that kind of stuff. And they had a boss there, a guy that was trying to produce more modern stuff. Before when you'd listen to him, it'd be really, things that sounded dated. And they were trying to create some more edgy kind of things, There's nothing with a better outcome when Christians try to get edgy. But they tried to do this, they wanted to do this concept of a radio show where callers would call in and ask questions about life, about Scripture, whatever the case may be. And what they wanted was the kind of the expert guy to give the answers. But there were shows at this time that had comedic people that were also on those shows that would poke fun or make fun or be funny during the time. So it would make it a lighthearted radio show. And at the time, I was doing comedy, and I was doing comedy at a church. And they reached out to me and said, could you be this guy, this funny guy? We're going to do a pilot, which is a test, show. Start to finish, like it's an actual show. They even brought in an audience that would sit there and watch and everything, because they wanted the interaction of an audience laughter and things like that. And so we get there, and I'm there, and I've never met the expert or anything. All I know is that I am supposed to just be funny. And I did comedy for a church, but I really wasn't strong in my faith at this time. I was really it was about entertainment and things like that. And so the audience came in, the people came in, and they were workers and people that came from Back to the Bible and things like that. And in the front row was Allison. And I was really taken aback by her. She was beautiful, gorgeous, still is. And just, for some reason, I just couldn't take my eyes off of her. She just was that stunning to me. And the show went on, and I did, I threw in comments. They said before they did it, they wanted it contemporary. They didn't want me to be a church guy. They wanted me to be a comedian. So I was a comedian. I later found out that when they played the tape for the head guy, he not only turned down the project, but he ordered every tape destroyed. They had to. And he said that they have to be destroyed. I have no idea, but all I remember the most of that was this very beautiful person sitting in front of me. Now, our lives went on and everything like that, and it was almost like 8 years later, I ran into her at a conference. We had both become pastors in the 8-year interim. And is he okay? Are they okay? Okay. She okay? Okay. Did you do something to her? Okay. All right. I'm watching you, though. About 8 years later, we were at a conference, and we had both become pastors in that time. And she said, hey, I've always wanted to have coffee. And so she was in North Platte, I was in Lincoln. We met in York, which is where we have two people that come from York every Sunday to see us. And we had coffee at the Starbucks there. Now remember, I thought she was absolutely gorgeous. I was really, just visually, I thought she was so attractive. But when I started to talk with her, oh man, she just became more beautiful and more beautiful with every conversation. You ever had that where you have somebody that you're just attracted to, but then you learn about them? You learn everything about them? I see the couples looking at each other, and if you're not, you're in trouble. But you do, you learn their stories. We sat at that Starbucks for, I think it was 3 or 4 hours. The time just went away. But the more that I learned about this person, the more layers I learned, the depth, the more meaningful it became. And that's when I truly, on that way home, driving home, I just remembered I was stunned. I did not know what was going on, but I was in love, truly. And that, to me, is the same way that I fell in love with my faith. And that's why this poem, this psalm, means so much. The psalm's in 2 parts. In the very first part, it talks about the beauty of God. It talks about how, like I said, the author of this is credited as King David. And he's talking about how he can see God in everything. He mentions lines like this: the heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, Night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard, yet their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. He's talking about how amazing it is to just peek out at the world and understand God. And for me, I didn't get that until I had this. We didn't go to church when I was a kid. I had no, we might have gone to some holiday things or something like that, but I had no real experience with God. I did not become a Christian truly in my heart until much, much later. And when that hit me, I remember it was almost as if the world had opened up. It was almost as if I understood what the beauty of God is. When David talks about the stars at night, even in the darkness, God gives light. And the sun, about how the heat reaches everybody and it touches us all. I felt that when I first experienced in AA, they call it a spiritual awakening. And that's the best way to describe it. It was a moment where I just went, wow, I felt the presence of God. And I used to bike all the time. I've let myself go since then, but I used to bike, and I would stop times and just listen to nature. You ever just do that? You ever get out to where it seems like it's silent, but when you listen, you hear the birds, you hear life, you hear the wind, you hear creation, you hear God. And that was my first experience with God. I really felt this amazing beauty. I would walk outside and I would see the trees, I would see the grass, I would see everything. And for some reason, it was almost as if I was seeing color for the first time. My favorite color at this time became green. It never used to be green, but it became green because I saw so much of it. And I thought that was it was like God's canvas out there. And I just fell in love with it. But that brought my faith only a little bit. That brought the awe part of it. But it was like when I first saw Allison. I was infatuated by her beauty, but I didn't know anything about her. And at this time, I was experiencing God's beauty in the world, but I still didn't know anything about him. I didn't know who really God was. I had a lot of people, and I don't know if there's other people here that just weren't raised in the church or anything, but when you're not raised in the church, you have, and unfortunately some people that are raised in the church have this concept, but you have this concept of God just being disappointed in you in all things. And you're scared that God is just going to be, whatever, you do in your life, God's just there with a check mark saying, oh, you screwed that up, and all that kind of stuff. And so I had the fear of God down, but I knew nothing about God. I saw the beauty, and I had to go a step further. And that's what this psalm talks about. When David is taking it from the first part, he is talking about the beauty, that awe-inspiring, the whole feelings that you get from God. It's talking about the emotion that you get from God. And then in a turn, he starts talking about the law of God. He mentions this. He says, the law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is clear, enlightening the eyes. Now that was something that when I hear things like law, I think about, strict coherence to, following what God says. I go Old Testament because David was talking about the Torah. He was talking about truly the law that kept them as Israelites separate from everybody else so that they could remain focused on the monotheistic God and carry that message forward. And so me not being educated in the scripture and everything like that, I would look at a line like this, and I would think, okay, in order to like God, it's all about behavior, it's all about how you act, and I've really screwed that up, How many people can say that they went to a Bible thing, did something, and their tape was destroyed? How many people can say that? God obviously hates me because, it's not like, let's put this on a shelf and wait. They burned it. So I didn't think that I was very, I didn't think God approved of me. I love the awe of God. But it's when I started to investigate and listen to God that everything started to change. And when I say listening to God, the law of God, to me, I had never understood what this was. I really didn't. Not being in a church and stuff, you knew about the Bible, all of this kind of stuff. You did not know what was in it. You did not know what it was saying to you. You did not know what your part was in it. You didn't get far. It was looking at a beautiful woman, but never getting a chance to talk to her for me. I can't imagine if I never had the opportunity to actually have a discussion with my wife and to talk to her, how much more that meant to me. And that's what I did with God, too. It was when I started to look at this and actually read it. My first trial was completely wrong, because my first trial of getting to know God, I didn't know anything of this. I didn't know where to start, so I went to television. And all I saw were men that always combed their hair up and back. And they always had, jewelry and stuff. And they always talked about how if you prayed enough, you could get the job that you wanted, the boat that for some reason, it was always about boats and jets to them. Half of their time on television, they'd be talking about how if you wished for it like a genie, God would grant your request. And then the second half was talking about how you need to take your money and give it to them. I suppose to buy more hairspray. I'm not sure. There was two styles there. The men, it was combed back. Even if they were losing it, it just kept going up and back. The women, I think they rode in the back of a pickup truck at 65 miles an hour and sprayed. That's all they did, because it was just... And that almost knocked me out of Christianity completely. I was looking at the wrong place. I saw the beauty, but I was having the conversation with the wrong person. It was when I started to understand this, when I started to actually listen to that church that I was going to and doing comedy bits. It was when I actually started to listen to the things that were being said. It had nothing to do with the wish list or anything like that. When they talk about God's laws, I wasn't hearing that in our world. As a Christian church, I wasn't hearing a lot about the Torah or how we need to follow the commandments and how it's a strict adherence to law. Because what I understood is that because of this person named Jesus Christ, that law of the Torah had been fulfilled, and there was a new law. And so the people that were listening to things like Psalm 19 and hearing about the law, their view of that law is different than the people that in David's time would hear that. It wasn't about adherence to, whether or not I could eat bacon or, wear clothing with different fabric in it. It was about Jesus. It was about a new revolutionary law. It was about loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving your neighbor as you would want to be loved. And I wouldn't have known that if I did not investigate and have that conversation. Suddenly, just like when I saw nature and God in nature, I was seeing Christ in the text, and I was understanding more. I was seeing beyond color now. I was seeing not only what the Christian faith was, I was seeing what my place was in it. It's almost like seeing different dimensions. And instead of seeing God just in nature, I started to see Christ in people. It wasn't about just the trees anymore. It was about you people, the conversations, hearing people's stories, understanding where people come from, learning about our differences and our similarities. It broadened everything that I had. And so when David is talking about Psalm and he's saying, it is so amazing that we find God in our emotions and in our feelings in the world, but we also find him when we study, when we gain wisdom, when we delve into the Word. I understand that passion that he has. I understand that fervor of just how amazing this truly is. And for the first time, I understood what church was. I always thought church was just kind of a weird thing where people show up and they complain about that the donuts are there, or they're not the right donuts, and then there's some kid that's licking all the donuts and no one's looking, and other people having social things. But then we sing, and then we listen to somebody talk about this stuff. And I got it. Monday through Saturday, I get to see God in nature. I get to see God everywhere. But one day a week, at least, I get to share in a community where we actually gain wisdom and strength in Scripture that is inspired by God. I get to gain strength in the awe of God, and I get to remind myself what the law is that I am to be following. And that law is love. And I don't know about you guys, but in this world, I need to be reminded of that weekly, that I'm supposed to love my neighbor, even when they are exploding things right next to my house until all hours of the evening. I'm supposed to love them. And that's when I delved into the Bible. That's when I delved into Scripture. I started taking classes. I became a nut about this stuff. It became important for me to put things into context, to put things into the time and place, but it also became important to me to be around people that wanted to share that and explore that every week. I understood why we do this church thing. And I understood how important it was. Because like the trees and the grass and everything, we get to see the presence of Christ in each other. And that's a wonderful thing. I see Christ in all of you. I truly do. And I learn how to look for it and appreciate it. And I learn how to share it. That's an amazing thing. Allison and I just last month celebrated 10 years of marriage. Yeah. Applaud for me, pray for her. And it's something that has been so meaningful in my life. And as much as that is meaningful, nothing compares to the meaning that Christ has been in our lives. That's something that both Alice and I share very strongly. And that's something that has given strength to our lives, to our relationship, and our community. I pray that all of us take moments to where we really just go, how great is this? How great is this that we have a God that sends us signs everywhere? And how great is this that we get to share that with each other? I do pray that everyone here feels the presence of God, feels that love. And I pray and challenge every one of us to take that faith even deeper. And whatever you are, go a little bit deeper. Search for God where you haven't searched before. Learn more about God. Come to church. Give us your money. celebrate the love of Christ wherever you are.